The Crypto Markets Update is brought to you by KuCoin, the best place to find the next crypto gem. All right, joining us now to discuss the crypto markets is Nauman Sheikh. He's the Managing Director, Head of Treasury Management and Derivatives Trading at asset manager Wave Financial. Good morning, Nauman. Thank you so much for joining us. So, some folks are saying Rectember is over and Uptober is a thing. Is it?
You mean Rocktober? Yeah,
Rocktober.
it's a thing. It's a thing. I think the fourth quarter could be a decent quarter for the markets. We saw a very strong two-day rally across risk assets. Driven by softer economic numbers, but also intervention by some of the central banks. BOJ, BOE. You know what they say: the markets stop panicking when the central banks start panicking. It's not a pivot. And certainly the Fed has not pivoted yet, even though the market is implying that the Fed could be pivoting. But, the Fed is looking at inflation numbers. That hasn't been resolved yet. And they're still hiking into deteriorating numbers going forward. All the forward-looking indicators are deteriorating, and they have not indicated at all that they're going to stop their momentum. But the major risk across the globe right now is that they're exporting inflation and the sovereign crisis and the currency crisis. So whether that causes them to kind of hold back, it just remains to be seen. But we saw a two-day rally, and I think we're just profit taking at the moment.
All right, and on that idea of a Fed pivot, so we got some economic data out. ADP's employment report showing businesses created 208,000 jobs in September as schools reopened and pandemic concerns receded. Annual pay is up almost to 8%. And while job growth is stable, it remains below the recent 3-month average. And there's a growing chorus of folks who believe the Fed may lighten up following intervention from the Bank of England and lower rate hikes than expected from Australia's central bank. Do you think that trend will continue?
I think it could possibly continue because the Fed has to be aware.
You're quite bullish on the fourth quarter. Where would that come from?
I'm quite bullish on the fourth quarter. I feel like the Fed can't afford to not acknowledge the global risks that it is essentially causing. Right? It's and causing for good reason because of inflation. But the fact remains that it has to look at forward-looking inflation numbers, and they're all going down. If you look at housing, pending and new housing sales, housing prices, inventory build, they're all falling dramatically. The issue is that as the numbers seep in, they're a mixed bag. So they're very much backward looking at the moment, looking at CPI numbers, core CPI numbers, which are all backward looking. But at the end of the day, if you get a sovereign crisis, which I feel is where the crisis will originate globally, if the easing or if the pivot doesn't happen, they're gonna have to force their hand. But they haven't acknowledged it yet, so I can't say for sure. Let's see what the CPI numbers come out with next week. Maybe that's it'll give them some cause for pause.
So at Wave Financial, you manage the treasury assets of a lot of foundations from different blockchains. What kind of investor activity are you seeing?
The investor activity right now is very yield oriented. Yield is very scarce across DeFi and across the entire space. So it's really coming up with innovative ways to generate those yields in a more risk-adjusted way. We trade a lot of derivatives around these assets because the assets, native tokens are, we're in a flat market. So you take advantage of flat markets by selling options, selling volatility. Surprisingly, if you look at the crypto space over the last few months, volatility in the crypto space has gone down versus all other asset classes where volatility spiked. So it's actually a good thing for crypto at the moment. It just shows you the flat nature of it. And what do you do in a flat market where there's no leverage in the system? Well, you continue to sell options in the hope that we stay in the flat market for the foreseeable future. And I feel that's what's going to happen unless, again, the Fed pivots.
All right. And any tokens or, altcoins that you are seeing, any particularly interesting trends with?
We're seeing slight dispersion happening in the space. A lot of it is in the sort of forgotten deep value space. A lot of the protocols that actually generate revenue and earnings net of sort of issuance costs or inflationary tokens. they're rallying. You look at Maker, look at Aave, look at Uni. A lot of these tokens have just been forgotten because everybody's have been chasing sort of hype projects, looking for 100 times returns, but the actual value projects are they're by the wayside. So I think that's the next wave over time, is anything that's been sort of left on the side because they make steady cash flow, and therefore you can actually look at valuation in a proper sort of fundamental way. I think funds will kind of flow into that space over time.